I think there's something about the mutedness and the softness and the light that really feel like an interior space. Like she's cocooning in this space, and yeah, and it just kind of went from there. It always starts with an image, so it starts with a figure that I want to work with or a found image, and then I kind of wait and see what happens as I'm making the painting. And I feel like that's where the meaning happens, and that's where the kind of emotion of the painting or the sentiment or, you know, any of those things, it happens in the making of it for me.
I think for me, I was always interested in creating a safe space for women, just coming from Karachi and growing up in an environment where women were sort of less than, and just having a life which was more at home than outside, because home was safe and going out was like literally not. So I think I was really interested in doing that in my paintings. But when I moved here, I started painting faces for the first time. She was very much painted in the style of an Indo-Persian miniature painting, because that was what I studied in school. Indo-Persian painting is a genre of Islamic art, so the way we paint, everything is super stylized. Like, they're not supposed to be realistic. They're kind of flattened, and you can like do a side profile, or you can do like a 3/4 profile, but the gaze is never kind of head on. And I noticed over the years that face started turning to like look at the viewer, which was so different. So I think for me there was a whole emotional process which unfolded in moving from the east to the west, and a feeling of safety which sort of became a part of my life, and just feeling more open, and that it was okay to express or look or just be present and not have to hide. Like, that feeling of constantly hiding left a little bit. So I think it was kind of a life mirroring art, mirroring life situation.
I grew up in Alberta in a very rural place, and I realized that culturally it really was centered on boys and men, and all of the kind of, you know, bravado around sports and I don't know, everything. It was like, it was okay to be a girl, but it was better to be a boy. Mm-hmm. And I felt very limited in what I had access to as a girl. And I think as a young girl, I really rejected anything that seemed feminine. I was a tomboy, you know, I played sports, I wore a baseball cap all the time, and I really rejected it. And as I got older, you know, and became really invested in painting and the history of painting, you know, my first love in painting was the figure and classical nudes and these really kind of almost cliche feminine paintings, and I just loved them so much. And you know, growing older, I think I started to kind of look at that rejection of the feminine, and I saw it also in the context of the art world, and how in Canada I felt like as a woman and as a painter, my work had to appear to be not unemotional, and it had to appear to be not romantic and more formalist, you know, if I was objective, to be taken seriously. Yeah. And then it kind of became a challenge, you know. I remember a guy in grad school saying to me, you know, Corri, what kind of woman painter do you want to be? And it felt to me like it just lit the fire of, I'm going to paint whatever I want. And and romantic painting, you know, the history of painting and classical painting had always been this guilty pleasure. It's like we weren't really allowed to love it, and we weren't allowed to make it. Yeah. And also, I think the idea of using porn, growing up really Christian, it was like that was, these are taboo images, and there's so many messages you get as a woman growing up, and as a girl, there's so many messages about shame and about desire, and all of those things are hidden. And yeah, it just feels like is a constant unpacking of that experience and my experience as an adult kind of rejecting those ideas. So, yeah.
Well, I think it informs, growing up Muslim would inform the art in the way that I trained in a very traditional, very old painting technique, which is Indo-Persian miniature painting, which is within the genre of Islamic art. So there are so many factors, there are so many elements in my paintings now which are still a part of that format that I learned. And so, for instance, some of the rules of miniature painting are there are no perspectives. Like, you represent a body or a landscape or an atmosphere, but you are never realistic. You're not supposed to compete with God. So it's the whole process of learning miniature is kind of unlearning how you draw naturally, or if you're a realistic painter, to unlearn that and to stylize everything. And then you repeat that so many times because it's been passed on from master to apprentice that your hand just starts moving in this really kind of stylized way.